proper management. This number of patients discharged could not have been possible without the dedication and commitment of our health workers, some of whom work under very difficult conditions. We want to take this opportunity to thank them and salute them for their work on the front line. As we said earlier, and salute them for their work on the front line. As we said earlier, recoveries happen all the time from COVID-19. If one is infected with COVID-19, it is not a death sentence. Most people do recover from COVID-19. And since this is a new disease, this group of people who recover from COVID-19 continue to make substantial contribution to the knowledge on COVID-19. Many of you may be aware that serum from patients who have recovered from COVID-19 has been used to treat patients who are severely ill from the disease, and there have been cases of recoveries. I say this because I want to emphasize that COVID-19 is not a disease that we should stigmatize. As we celebrate these discoveries, the global situation will indicate that COVID-19 can very easily overwhelm health systems if containment measures are not adhered to. We have seen images of desperate patients being aired on various media platforms, and surely we do not want this to happen to us. This is why we have repeatedly emphasized on measures to avoid overburdening our healthcare system. The containment measures that we have put in place are intended to flatten the curve and to be able to not overwhelm our health systems when our cases begin to peak. The virus has proven that it is very resilient. Indeed, the experience of other countries has proven that behavioral factors, in addition to other interventions, play a large part in slowing down the spread of infections. To deploy behavior as the weapon to defeat the virus requires consistency. Any sporadic adherence to the containment measures only creates a fertile ground for the virus to spread. Hence our repeated appeals to Kenyans in order to achieve this consistency of behavior and practice in the campaign against coronavirus. The requirement of regular hand washing, maintaining social distancing, proper wearing of masks, observing basic hygienic standards, and staying at home must now become part of our everyday lifestyle. I know there are many Kenyans who have strictly observed these measures and regulations. I want to thank them for their cooperation, which has contributed to the achievements we have registered thus far. But I'm also aware that there are a few Kenyans who have difficulties in observing these measures. I want to remind them of the importance of obeying these interventions. It is true that measures disrupt our usual routine. However, a time comes when an individual must sacrifice his or her interest for the greater good of the majority. This is the time when every member of the society must put their personal interests aside and focus on the interest of the country. Fellow Kenyans, since yesterday, we have tested 1,056 samples collected from individuals in quarantine facilities and from those in the surveillance program. Out of these, 23 tested positive for COVID-19 disease. 22 of them are Kenyans and one is a Burundi national. The cumulative number of those who have tested positive in the country now stands at 672. The overall number of samples that have been tested in the country to date is 32,097. The distribution of the cases by counties is as follows: 12 in Mombasa, 6 in Mandera, 4 in Nairobi, and 1 in Kajiado. 20 of the cases were picked by surveillance teams, while 3 are from the mandatory quarantine facilities. In Nairobi, the 4 cases are from the following estates: 2 from Umoja, 1 each from Komarok and Pipeline. The 12 cases in Mombasa are from the following localities: 2 from Kisauni, 2 from Likoni, and 8 from Mvita. The 6 cases from Mandera are distributed as follows: Mandera East 3, and 1 each from Elwak, Mandera North, and Mandera West. In Kajiado, the 1 case is from Saina Estate. In terms of age, the cases range between 1 year, 9 months for the youngest, and 80 years for the oldest. By gender, 13 are males, while 10 are females. I'm also saddened to announce that we have lost 2 other patients from Mombasa. This now brings the number of those who have succumbed to the disease to 32. I want to send our condolences to the families and friends of the deceased. I want to take this opportunity now. You can see that I am joined by Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala. I want to invite him to make his remarks. Karim Waziri.
Thank you very much, CAS Rashid. Today I'm here to stand in solidarity with our colleagues at the Ministry of Health, and they have done a good job. And the recovery of today, the announcement that you have announced of 36 people who have recovered, that is a salutation to our health workers in the front line and the efforts and the measures done by the Ministry of Health. So congratulations. This disease is real. We have seen in other countries, the United States is almost 78,000 people have died of this disease. The UK is above 30,000 people have died. Italy, above 30,000 people have died. And Kenya, we are worried if we are not careful, that number can go to higher number. We are glad it's still 2-digit number, but because of the strict measures done by the government, we as Kenyans should embrace these measures because they are good for us, not necessarily good for government, good for us as human beings and people, because it's going to save us from death or from being sick. So we as government, we want to put all these measures in place so that we can go back to normal. In the hospitality sector and the tourism sector, we want to gradually open this sector as well because it is worstly hit by this pandemic. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock in my office, we have been given support by the Ministry of Health, the whole team of health, they'll be in my office. We have invited the stakeholders in the hospitality sector, both the hotels and the restaurants, so we can look at the protocols. The protocols, the ones which have been announced by the Ministry of Health, how practical, how the issue of stopping the spread of this disease to even washing of hands. Tomorrow we of this disease to even clients and people who visit our establishment. So tomorrow we are starting with the hospitality sector. But we have agreed also, every sector will come with protocols that will be endorsed and agreed by the Ministry of Health. So the Ministry of Health will be the final endorser of these protocols, and when we roll them out, we must respect those protocols. And we must not only police them, the policing cannot be done by government alone. The hospitality industry is blamed for spreading the virus to more Kenyans, and that is what we don't want. So government is committed to slowly, and we want to establish the protocols ready, if not now, even in the new norm when the economy is open. So today I'm here announcing that we will formulate those protocols of the economy and slowly working with the stakeholders to make it work. So mine are those. Because I'm here, the holy month of Ramadan, it's very important for us. It is the saddest thing to have the month of Ramadan without going to the mosques, without praying Taraweeh, without praying Tahajjud, which is coming. It is sad. If this plague has to affect human beings, then even our religion, we can postpone these activities. Today you have seen the Holy Mosque of Mecca, the Holy Mosque of Medina. They have shut down their gates because they know it can be a center where the spread can go to many other people. So that is something that we are not very comfortable with as Muslims. But because of the bigger good, most of the mosques have been shut, and we have made it very clear it will be. We know we have tamed the virus, and we with protocols that will be appropriate at the right time. But my brothers and sisters who believe in Islam and are fasting, please fast. Don't mingle in crowds, because that can be also doing the spread of the virus. Those rituals and those traditions that we used to do of common eating in one plate, common feasting as a events, I think we must not continue with those rituals and those traditions, because they will affect the health of our colleagues and spread to the beloved ones, friends, and Kenyans. So mine is to appeal to the Muslim community. Measures are done to stop the spread of the virus, but also to safeguard the interests of the communities and the public at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Waziri. Allow me now to ask Dr. Kuria to step over to the podium and maybe talk a little bit about drivers, truck drivers from our neighboring countries, and the testing protocols that we are planning on putting in place as we continue to test these truck drivers.
Thank you very much, CS and CS Rashid. It's an honor to stand before Kenyans guidelines on the issue of truck drivers. But before proceeding on to truck drivers, let us first revisit the issue of restaurants and eateries that the CS Tourism has highlighted on. The ministry issued guidelines and protocols on the management and the reopening of restaurants and eateries. And owners of those restaurants and eateries were requested to go to their respective public health offices and reapply inspection of their facilities for compliance to the guidelines that we issued. Let me say here that a few good Kenyans and followed the guidelines as highlighted. They visited their respective county public health offices. They applied using their forms up, and their premises were inspected, tested, and certified as COVID negative, and they were issued with permits to operate, and they did open their eat. And I know a number are operational. I won't call them bad Kenyans. They are equally good because they are providing a service. But they are not doing good service to Kenyans by opening those restaurants without obeying the guidelines or following the protocols as provided. There are a number that have failed to observe the distancing that we recommended. A few have totally disregarded the guidelines and opened restaurants and eateries without. Let us reiterate here as a Ministry of Health, we shall not hesitate to close down those restaurants. And it's not a warning, it's an advice that starting tomorrow, we shall be sweeping across. And if you are met operating your restaurant, then you have no other alternative but to close down your restaurant, and indeed, you are liable to persecution. You are indeed liable to prosecution, and we will not hesitate to do so. There are others that have just said the good Kenyans, but are operating beyond the hours that are set, because in the guidelines we said you can operate between 5 a.m. and 4 p.m. As late as yesterday, some were open up to 9 p.m. This is total disregard of law. And as I said, CSR, we will not hesitate to close down those facilities and prosecute the owners. And as the CS said, we are developing protocols enabling Kenyans to develop, to all reopen business. And in line with this, as late as yesterday, we launched the new guidelines or protocols that are going to be used by truck drivers using the transport corridor between Mombasa and our neighboring countries, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, and even Somalia. And we all know that truck drivers have been recognized as a major risk factor for the spread of COVID-19. And you have noticed, you may have noted from some of our pressers that a number of those who have tested positive have actually been netted across the border crossing points. It is in this regard that we decided to develop protocols that are going to be used by truck drivers in order to curtail the spread of coronavirus. Looking at the number of cases that are developing, for example, in Mombasa, and where the port is, then it's highly likely then that the truck drivers, the turn boys and the loaders are likely to import that COVID-19 from Mombasa across the transport corridor and all the way to our neighbors. So in order to curtail this, we developed protocols in consultation with our neighboring countries. And indeed, you must report here that in the last 2 weeks, there have been a series of meetings between the East African Ministers of Health and the East African affairs. And these protocols then have been agreed upon by all these neighboring states. And in a nutshell, what the guidelines entail is that for any truck driver who starts his journey today must have had a test for 8 hours before starting the journey. So if you are a truck driver and you intend to travel to Malaba tomorrow, you may not do this because there will be checkpoints along the way that will be checking whether you have been tested and confirmed COVID negative. So what the protocols then advise is that before any driver starts his travel, make sure that you have your COVID test done 48 hours in advance. Why 48 hours? Because of the method we are using for testing, the real-time PCR, it takes about 24 hours to release your results. So we do not want to delay your travel waiting for your results. So if you did your sampling 48 hours in advance, you'll have your results 24 hours again before you start your journey, and you'll be able to travel through the transport corridor with ease. Along the corridor then, there will be checkpoints where your certificate will be checked. So once you get your sample collected, results released in 24 hours, and you'll be issued with an attestation of testing confirming that indeed you are COVID negative. And you shall travel with your attestation along the transport corridor, and it will be checked along. We will highlight to you in the guidelines where the checkpoints will be placed. We have, in that respect, therefore, placed a number of testing centers also along the transport corridor, because not all journeys are going to start in Mombasa. Should you start your journey in Kisumu, there should be a testing facility in Kisumu. So we have placed testing facilities where samples will be collected in the following areas. In Mombasa, we have Miritini Municipal Dispensary. In Nairobi, we have the Red North Health Center and the South B Clinic. In Kisumu, we have Ahero County Hospital. In Migori, we have Migori County Referral Hospital. In Eldoret, we set up a mobile testing facility, and also you can use a Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. In Nakuru, you may use the Provincial General Hospital Nakuru and Naivasha Hospital. Indeed, we did a piloting on Friday and did our initial testings in Naivasha on Friday. In Kilifi, you can use Kilifi KMTC. In Kwale, you have the Kwale Sub-County Hospital, Msambweni County Referral Hospital, and Kinanga Hospital. In Machakos, again, we have a Mulolongo Mobile Sample Collection Center. In Wajir, we have the Wajir County Hospital, and in Marsabit, we have the Marsabit County Referral Hospital. We will be setting up more centers as we go along. Those are the ones that we have set up initially to facilitate truck drivers to test either on the way or as they start their journeys in those points. For those crossing the border, we are required then that if you are traveling from Uganda with your truck, upon arrival at the border, you are supposed also to present a certificate from the country that you started your journey. As long as that certificate is within 14 days, it will be taken as valid. However, we shall still take another sample for verification, because a COVID negative certificate, on the other hand, apparently, does not confirm that you could be COVID negative forever. You could have picked up this infection along the way. So it's only an assurance that at least you are negative at the time you started your journey. So you'll take another sample, but because you had been tested, we shall allow you to proceed. But along the way, you can be stopped once you get your results. It is therefore important that the port health officers at the border points have been urged to increase their vigilance, and surveillance is at an all-high level within these border points. So temperatures will be recorded, and any symptoms of COVID will be recorded at the border point. You will then be required to fill your self-quarantine form. What do you mean by this? That along the transport corridor, you'll be allowed to stop only at certain designated points. Public health officers will monitor your travel. And at the back of that form, you're supposed to keep, the public health is supposed to record your findings on that form. And check that your certificate is still valid. Otherwise, we refer you to the next testing facility. So we have also placed testing facilities, therefore, at Lunga Lunga entry point, Taveta, Namanga, Busia, Malaba, Isebania, Moyale, and Moyale points of entry. And all the truckers operating along this transport corridor, regardless of whether they will cross the border or not, will be required to hold a valid attestation letter and monitored then from there on at the various checkpoints. At your designated stopovers, you will encounter public health officers who will again be able to monitor you, and should you develop symptoms along the transport corridor, they will be able to link you with the county rapid response teams and refer you to quarantine facilities or isolation centers. The designated stopovers that we have managed to get so far for the truck drivers traveling along the Busia-Mombasa road, we have a point in Busia, Gilgil, Mulologo, and Mariakani. If you are in Busia, if you go through the guidelines, they say the current guest house and the Dasar guest house have been approached and they have negotiated rates for you for your self-quarantine. You shall not use any other facility beyond this. And you're supposed to observe the self-quarantine procedures as outlined before. Those operating between Maraba and Mombasa, you have a stopover in Malaba, you can stop over in Gilgil again, Murorongo, or Mariakani. You are not allowed to stop over at any other point. For those operating between Namanga and Nairobi, the only stopover allowed is Mulolongo. And for those operating between Isebania, Kisumu, Nairobi, Maimahio is also allowed, and the Toto Junction, Mau Summit. For those between Maraba and Nairobi, you can stop over in Webuye, but there is no sleeping facility in Webuye. These guidelines will be available online at www.health.go.ke as early as 9 a.m. tomorrow for further reference. Let me stop there, CSR, unless there are any questions.
We'll take the questions later. I wish now to invite Governor Kuti, of Isiolo, who has just joined us, to the podium, and I have to talk on the county perspective and their response to COVID-19.
Thank you, CAS. Good evening. Mine is very brief. I think I want to share an experience of our first COVID case in Isiolo, which I think is going to be a lesson or a learning to other counties and how not to do certain things, because our first patient was exposed to a lot of embarrassment because his photos and the photos of his family when we put them in quarantine was taken and put on social media. And that has brought a lot of embarrassment to him and his family. And I think there was a lot of excitement and a lot of concern because a first case in the county, everybody is very much attentive. But that was not how to do it, and we want to urge other counties, especially those who may be getting their first cases in future, to make sure that the privacy and the privacy of the patient and his family or their families should be of paramount importance, because nobody is free from getting COVID. We are all bound to get, even if we are governors or cabinet secretaries and anybody, media. This is a disease that anybody can get, and therefore the issue of stigmatizing those who have the disease, the issue of looking at them like they have a mistake or they have a problem different from other people, it should not be entertained in any county. And I would like to take this opportunity actually publicly to apologize to our patient and his family, and also to ensure that people refrain from publicizing the identity, putting the name, the ID number, the photos, taking photos maybe as samples are taken and then that is flashed on social media. That is very, very negative way of handling this disease. In fact, it's counterproductive to the way this disease should be managed. I think I'm also impressed now that more and more counties are getting well prepared. We are getting more isolation facilities. We are increasing our quarantine facilities. And I will urge that we continue because our numbers are rising. And also the number of counties that are getting positive cases is expanding. It's like this thing is going to be spreading to all counties eventually. Therefore, it is important that we prepare ourselves, and those who are already preparing should continuously add the facilities, because the way it looks, we have managed to flatten the curve to a certain extent. But as maybe we open, and now that the eateries are open and maybe other places are being opened, then we need to be more prepared. The also issue of floods that are really compounding. Floods are compounding this problem. A lot of counties are now grappling with a lot of displaced communities, to some of them large numbers, who are displaced and therefore not having places to stay, and therefore they are crowding. They are not having ability to social distance because they have even nowhere to stay. I flew yesterday to a part of my county that has been flooded by River Wasonyiro breaking its banks, and the whole village was submerged. And it is important now we pay attention to that, and I hope now something could be done to prevent the ensuing diarrheal diseases, the ensuing dirty water that people are taking. So we may anticipate more malaria. Therefore, compounded with this condition, now we are having more challenges, and I'm urging counties to prepare themselves, and I'm also urging national government to really come in and support the counties that are grappling with these extra challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Soto Lale NTV. In terms of contact tracing for the truck drivers who are among the confirmed cases in Uganda, noting that Kenyans in Uganda had a significant in terms of scaling in the number of cases confirmed there. So in terms of contacting having the cases of the contacts, where are we in regards to that? Thank you.
Still on the cases in Uganda, more than 4 dozen truck drivers, majority of them are foreigners. The Ministry of Health in Uganda says that some of them are self-evacuating back home and some are being sent back home by the Ugandan government. In total, how many truck drivers, Kenyan truck drivers, have tested positive in Uganda? Have they been sent back home? Have they come themselves, that self-evacuation back home? And what is the procedure? Where are they being held if they are here? And if they're in Uganda, how are also they being treated?
I would just like to know maybe the health condition of the 2 patients that actually died in Mombasa, and then since they were tested of COVID-19. And then It's about 1.5 months since the government announced of mass production of the face masks, the PPEs, and other essentials of meant to fight COVID-19. Apart from the donation that the government has actually continued to receive, until now, no Kenyan has actually received an affordable or standardized face mask. Or neither do the health professionals in some of the counties within the country, despite the counties also going ahead to allocate huge money meant to fight COVID-19. How is the national government actually collaborating with the counties in fight against COVID-19? And why are they also allocating money to fight this same COVID-19, Wazir?
I wasn't working yesterday, so anyway, my name is Chamutai, going from Citizen TV. We've seen several counties come out to say they have Cambry-approved labs that can carry out tests, some even running to their thousands. We've only seen targeted mass testing in about 4 areas now, the truck drivers, Islim, Kawangware, and Old Town in Mombasa. What are the plans for the government to possibly roll out mass testing? And with county facilities now saying they are able to carry out testing, what is stopping the government from carrying out mass testing? Are these facilities skeleton facilities that are actually just labs? Is it the reagents? Is it the testing kits? What is it that these facilities have that they are now able to test COVID-19?
And it should be for either Waziri or maybe this time.
The government has had... thank you. My name is Angela Okech, Nation Media Group. You had earlier said that you are going to house some of the health workers in a designated place, and you actually allocated some funds towards this.
Okay,
How many health workers you've housed in that designated place?
Angela,
as
your
now?
question on health workers, I think I will ask Dr. Kuria to give you the number that he has them. Angela, your question on health workers, I think the number that we are housing in the facilities that have been identified to house them. The question by Chimtai or Citizen regarding approved labs and the whole issue of mass testing. I want to state here that testing is really the strategy that we need to emphasize on, because it is through testing that we will be able to determine where the infection is and who is infected and take the appropriate action to be able to place those individuals in isolation so that we break the cycle of transmission. So testing is critical for this response. As we have said repeatedly here, we have continued to build up the nation's capacity for testing. In the beginning, we were doing most of the testing within national laboratories and facilities, which happen to have the instrumentation required for that. That is not to say that the counties also do not have some level of capacity to do this testing. We do know that most counties do have facilities. I had mentioned earlier that one of the things we are working on with the counties is how do we decentralize the testing, because that is a necessity. As we move forward, as the demand for testing increases, the need for testing increases, we are going to require to be able to do these things within the counties for the quick turnaround of results and the appropriate action that is required. The counties do have a number of labs that are well equipped. We also have equipment that is used for molecular diagnosis of other diseases like TB, HIV, that are already in the counties. These equipment are now being reprogrammed to be able to do a COVID test. But this depends upon the manufacturer of this equipment actually producing the kit so that we can do that. We are already working with a company called, for example, SafeAid, that produces the Gene Expert. We have a lot of Gene Expert machines within the counties. We are in discussion with them about getting the kits so that we can then enable the counties to be able to do these tests at those facilities. So yes, the number of approved labs that will be able to do these tests will expand as we move forward. Mass production of PPEs. PPEs, as you know, have been somewhat of a constraint in the early part of our response because of the global demand and shortage of these products. Things seem to be easing a little bit with the opening up of China, where most of these products are manufactured. And we are continuing to acquire these commodities, both from outside, while at the same time working with our national facilities that have repurposed their work to be able to produce these PPEs. So I believe that in a short period of time, we should be able to have enough PPEs, both from our local manufacturing plants as well as from outside. And we do work very closely with the counties. In fact, we support the counties in providing them with commodities that they may not have. Just as it has been difficult for the national government because of the scarcity of the product to procure these products, I think the counties would be even in a more difficult place to procure them even if they had the resources. So we do work together to ensure that these commodities are available to the counties as they also mount their response to COVID-19. There was a question on truck drivers and how they are treated if they are found positive in Uganda, and the question was about the numbers as well. I do not have the correct numbers of the number of truckers from Kenya who have tested positive in Uganda, but in the last statistic that I had was, I think it was about perhaps 4 to 6 truckers that they had reported were found positive as they were planning to enter Uganda. In fact, they were already in Uganda because they normally test them at the border and allow them to proceed with their journey, and then they intercept them at some point if they are found positive. In the spirit of East African cooperation, and of course in the spirit of battling COVID-19, if an individual is found positive, that individual then needs to be put in isolation at that point. So I think the issue of sending back people who are positive to their countries is not in line with the East African cooperation spirit, where we expect that those individuals will be isolated and treated at the points where they are found established to have become positive. In terms of contact tracing for the truck drivers, I was not sure what the question is, but I thought the question perhaps meant that how do we follow up on the truckers themselves, and not their contacts. Am I correct, or is it the contacts that the contacts themselves? Well, you see, contact tracing begins once you have identified the primary confirmed case, who may be a trucker. Once a trucker has been identified as positive, then of course the normal process of gathering information on the history of this positive case, on their travel history and the contacts that they have come, the people that they have come into contact with, that is a standard procedure that is carried out vigorously, and all those contacts are then followed up on. So in this case, if we had a trucker who gets positive, is considered positive as they approach Busia, then our teams would be following the entire travel history of this trucker and following up on all the contacts along that corridor that that trucker may have come into contact with. Thank you very much.
Labda nitaongezea kidogo kwa lugha ya Kiswahili. Tunataka kuhimiza Wakenya wote matumizi ya barakoa matumizi ya kuosha mkono na sabuni, pia umuhimu wa kujipima hata ikiwa wewe si mgonjwa. Ikiwa wewe ni mgonjwa au si mgonjwa, ni muhimu upimwe kuweza kujua una virusi ama huna virusi. La muhimu ni kuwa ni muhimu sana kwa watu wapimwe. Kwa hivi sasa tunajaribu kupima watu wengi, watu takriban 30,000 wameshapimwa na tunataka tupime zaidi. Pahali ambao tunaona virusi hivi vinasambazwa ndio pahali kunawekwa umuhimu wa kupimwa kwa watu wote. Ikiwa ni kule Isli, ikiwa ni Kawangware, ikiwa ni kule mji wa kale kule Mombasa, kote. Lakini ni muhimu wananchi wote wajue umuhimu wa kupimwa, kwa sababu uweze kujua una virusi ama huna virusi. Na ikiwa huna virusi, tunamshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Ikiwa una virusi, lazima ujikinge na wenzako, kwa sababu usieneze virusi hivyo. La muhimu ni kuwa, kama alivyosema Daktari Kuria, wale watu ambaye wamekuja wameomba idhini ya kuendesha biashara zao, wale wamefuata nidhamu, wale watu tunawaheshimu sana. Wale watu ambaye wamekataa kufuata nidhamu, wale watu ni lazima wafuate nidhamu, ama tutawachukulia hatua kali. Na hatua kali inaweza kusababisha pia hata hiyo lisensi yako ya siku za usoni isikubalike, kwa sababu umevunja sheria na kuweza kuleta hatari ya wananchi kuambukizwa na virusi hivi. Kwa hivyo tunaomba Wakenya wote, wafanye biashara wote, kwa hisani zenu tunawaomba tufuate nidhamu. Nidhamu hii ni nzuri kwa sababu itakomesha ugonjwa huu wa corona na kueneza kwa virusi hivi, na pia kwa sababu tunataka nchi irudi kwenye vile ilivyo hapo awali. Lakini kutakuwa na nidhamu mpya ya kutosongamana, nidhamu mpya ya usafi. Hayo ndio mambo ambayo lazima tuyafuate, na kwa miajili na mwongozo wa Wizara ya Afya, sisi sote lazima tufuate nidhamu hiyo. Asanteni sana.
Hamjambo.